Good evening, everyone. Today I want to discuss the upcoming 8th season of the HBO mega hit series Game of Thrones. There will be spoilers in this video from the first 7 seasons, so viewers, please be warned.
Will you take a bit of advice from an old woman?
You stand in the presence of Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, rightful heir to the Iron Throne.
He's a clever man, your hand.
Rightful Queen of the Andals and the First Men, protector of the Seven Kingdoms, the mother of dragons.
I've known a great many clever men. I've outlived them all.
The Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, the Unburnt, the breaker of chains.
This is Jon Snow. He's king in the north.
You know why? I ignored them.
Your strategy has lost us Dawn, the Iron Islands, and the Reach.
If I have underestimated our enemies...
Our enemies?
Daenerys is not her father.
And she never will be. With the right counsel.
Your family, you mean? Perhaps you don't want to hurt them after all.
I've known a great many clever men.
Enough with the clever plans.
You're a dragon. Be a dragon.
I have 3 large dragons. I'm going to fly them to the Red Keep.
There's a war coming, Ned. I don't know when, I don't know who we'll be fighting. But it's coming.
If you're a Game of Thrones fan, then there is a very strong likelihood that most of your favorite characters are all dead. At least that's the case for me. In fact, my 3 favorite characters never even made it out of the first season. Khal Drogo almost made it, and he at least got the chance to display what a badass he was before all was said and done, but this directly led to his demise. Then there was Viserys, and he was a powerhouse villain right out of the gate, but he didn't make it very long. And my absolute favorite character of all time, King Robert Baratheon. Such a brilliant and lovable character, but he was killed early on by a pig. And while Ned Stark was never a favorite character of mine, his untimely death acted as a defining moment that firmly established the overall mood and tone of Game of Thrones. The first season illustrated that no character was safe, and those that perished usually did so in horrific fashion. Because of this, Game of Thrones quickly became a show where I usually found myself rooting for the most villainous characters the world had to offer. In addition to Viserys, whom I was quite fond of right from the start, I frequently found myself rooting for the likes of Joffrey Baratheon, and Ramsay Bolton, and Walder Frey. And of course there was the High Sparrow. I still haven't gotten over what happened to that poor fella. But for the most part, I've tended to enjoy the moments when Starks were getting slaughtered by endearing scumbag characters. Now here we are, going into Season 8. And I find myself hoping that Queen Cersei is the one who ultimately scores a complete and total victory. Long live Queen Cersei! I've always been a fan of Cersei, and in all honesty, I do believe her character is largely misunderstood. But despite my hopes that Cersei wins in triumphant fashion, I know better. Cersei is inevitably doomed. And whatever ill fate ultimately befalls her will almost assuredly be very disturbing and quite gruesome. Cersei is going down, but before that happens, I imagine she will have several significant victories before she meets her doom. And on that note, I think all of the available evidence indicates a strong likelihood that Cersei will indeed be the end of her brother Jaime.
She's a monster, you do know that.
To you, I'm sure. To others as well.
You murdered your own brother.
You should try it. Feels wonderful.
You really do love her. You poor fool.
You afraid of me?
Should I be?
She'll be the end of you.
Possibly.
I told you no one walks away from me.
Are you going to order him to kill me?
In addition to those clues that suggestively foreshadow the possibility of Cersei killing Jaime or having him killed, Their whole relationship has seemingly built up to this. Cersei never seemed to want to hide her love for Jaime. She never really wanted this to be a secret, bar out of necessity, and she always longed for the day that they could be open about things. And now that she sits as queen, and her father is dead, Cersei doesn't care anymore. But Jaime doesn't seem as big on having things out in the open, and I believe Cersei views this difference in attitude as a major betrayal. After all, Jaime was once willing to murder a child to keep their secret private, and he apparently still prefers keeping their personal bond as private as possible. This conflict between the twin sibling lovers is further complicated by Jaime's bond with Tyrion. So not only do I believe that Jaime is facing certain death, I believe it will be at the hands, or the will, of Cersei. Long live Queen Cersei. So who will survive Season 8? Sticking with the Lannisters, I think Tyrion probably has a pretty fair shake here. My feeling is it could go either way for him, but if I had to guess, I think Tyrion survives. The bigger question surrounding him, for me at least, is who is he ultimately going to betray? The Kobayashi Maru seems to be at play here. One way or another, I believe Tyrion will be faced with the no-win situation that forces his hand. Tyrion appears to be loyal to Daenerys, but he didn't look particularly overjoyed when looking over the ruins of the Lannister forces. Tyrion may have had a very good reason to hate his father and his sister, but he always had a close brotherly bond with his brother Jaime, and he always loved Cersei's children. Beyond that, the Lannisters were still his people. Tyrion seemed more than a bit conflicted by the results of the destruction of the Lannisters, which was in stark contrast to his muted enthusiasm when he was first detailing their attack plan. Tyrion has also gotten a glimpse into the darker side of Daenerys.
I offer you a choice. Bend the knee and join me.
All rulers demand that people bend the knee. That's why they're rulers.
Or refuse. And die.
She gave Tarly a choice. A man who had taken up arms against her. Your Grace, if you stop beheading entire
I'm
families...
not beheading anyone.
What else could she do?
Not burn him alive alongside his son?
Dracarys.
I am her hand, not her head. I can't make her decisions for her.
What kind of a queen am I if I'm not willing to risk my life to fight them?
A smart one.
You need to find a way to make her listen.
So while Tyrion is clearly feeling some sympathy towards his people, he is also seeing tangible evidence that Daenerys is just as capable of being a monster as Cersei. If ultimately forced to make a choice between Jaime and Daenerys, who will Tyrion ultimately side with? Would Tyrion ever truly betray Jaime, a brother who has always been the only one to consistently stand by him during his many times of need? I revert back to the ruins. This was something that seemed easy for Tyrion to do in theory, but when he eyewitnessed the aftermath of the actual destruction, it seemed to affect him differently. The other thing worth keeping in mind with Tyrion is that he seems to have a death wish.
If it weren't for me, you'd have a mother. If it weren't for me, you'd have a father. If it weren't for me, you'd have 2 beautiful children.
Your family, you mean? Perhaps you don't want to hurt them after all.
I've thought about killing you more times than I can count. Do it! Say the word.
I believe that was undoubtedly all Tyrion's guilt over the fact that Cersei's children did die, and that Tyrion truly views his role in all of this as something that's irredeemable. It's worth remembering that guilt, especially if Tyrion ultimately does betray Daenerys. And it's also worth remembering that Tyrion may still well have a death wish over his guilt. Meanwhile, Tyrion's ex-wife from a shared marriage, Sansa, appears to be coming into her own.
If you're her enemy, she'll never stop until she's destroyed you. Everyone who's ever crossed her, she's found a way to murder.
Stop it! Stop!
You have to be smarter than father. You need to be smarter than Rob.
Did you get a look at his daughters?
I did.
And?
I loved them, I missed them, but they made stupid mistakes and they both lost their heads for it.
I was there that day when Sir Gregor crushed your lover's head.
Say it. Say her name. Say it!
I close my eyes. I can hear the sound of Oberyn's skull break. The sound of your scream.
You almost sound as if you admire her.
I learned a great deal from her. I will not set foot in King's Landing while Cersei Lannister is queen. If they want another Stark prisoner, they can come and take me. I'm not a child. I am the Lady of Winterfell, and I am home. Thank you for all your many lessons, Lord Baelish. I will never forget them.
Sansa was never an especially likable character for me for most of the series. Like all of the Starks, she was prone to making one terrible decision after another, and this contributed to some of the many hardships she endured and suffered. But Sansa really has grown as a character, and she's starting to kick some ass, not unlike a younger version of Cersei. Sansa's experience points have certainly added up, and the way that her and Arya expertly dealt with Littlefinger by outmaneuvering him, Sansa has proven to be calculating and determined and formidable. The way she handled Baelish, I think that proves she has learned from her mistakes, she has learned from her experiences, and her most recent actions do have a lot of similarities with Cersei. And because of that, I don't think Sansa is long for this world, and I don't think her sister Arya will fare much better. I liked Arya in the beginning, and I especially loved that stretch where her story was intertwined with the Hound. Those two were like the dynamic duo of Westeros. But once Arya got into her prolonged, overdrawn training phase, I personally lost interest in her story and couldn't wait for her to die. But the character was redeemed, and the payoff finally came, and Arya was quite the badass in Season 7. The scene of her sparring with Brienne of Tarth was one of my favorite scenes among those that displayed how formidable Arya has become. Driven by an unrelenting lust for revenge, Arya's growth has been an interesting journey, and she seems destined to succeed. But things don't typically end well for revenge-driven characters in the Game of Thrones universe, and I don't think she's an exception. Arya won't go down without a fight, but I imagine she will go down, even if it's swinging away in quasi-heroic fashion. The same for Brienne of Tarth. I imagine she'll go down fighting, but I would be pretty surprised if she was in this for the long haul. I believe she will die.
Brienne of Tarth.
You know her?
You're with Brienne of fucking Tarth.
Well, not with her yet.
So what's the point in serving a god if none of us knows what he wants?
I think about that all the time.
You do know her.
We've met.
I want to make babies with her. Think of them. Great big monsters.
Come on! Run! Run!
Giantsbane, I don't like his chances either, even if he did or does survive the attack on the wall. Same for Lord Beric. I reckon the Lord of Light is just about finished with him.
I understand that if any more words come pouring out your cunt mouth, I'm gonna have to eat every fucking chicken in this room.
The Hound is another one I believe is destined to die. I was a pretty big fan of the Hound for a long time, but ever since he got his ass kicked by Brienne, he hasn't quite had the same edge. The Hound peaked when he threatened to eat all those chickens, and it's been all downhill since he got schooled by Brienne. The Hound bottled it in the scrap against the bear because he was overcome with fear and became cowardly around the flames. And the Hound even bottled it again when he let that white thing bite his arm. He's shot, past prime. I kind of hope the Mountain gets to squash the Hound's skull like a grape, but I don't think that's likely to happen. I think it's far more likely that the Hound slays his brother should the two actually meet in combat, but I don't think that's going to happen either. But however it plays out, I think both Clegane brothers are doomed to die. And speaking of characters I hope get their skulls squashed by Frankenmountain, Lyanna Mormont. It's not that I'm eager to see her character killed off, but somehow she managed to captivate and endear a massive fan base with one simple wave of her hand. That alone almost makes it seem fitting that she should meet some horrible soon-to-be premature finish. It feels inevitable to me. And on that note, Qyburn is the one I think might actually get crushed by the mountain. Truth be told, I suspect something far more gruesome is in store for Lyanna, but would be pretty cool if she was indeed crushed by Sir Gregor. As far as Jorah Mormont goes, I'm pretty sure that everyone expects him to die. His unwavering allegiance to Daenerys almost assuredly means he dies in her service, in one capacity or another. So Jorah's a goner.
There is still the question of my prize.
That's a lot of money I just gave you.
It's not a castle.
I don't think Bronn is ever going to get his fucking castle. And beyond that, I would be surprised if Bronn survives at all. Kind of feels to me like his own death was foreshadowed after he declined fighting for Tyrion against the Mountain. Bronn is always strayed a little too close to the edge, and I think he will soon regret not reverting to a life of comfort when he had the chance. Stick a fork in Bronn, he's finished. Samwell Tarly is an interesting one. He's always been a likable character that's often seemed in way over his head, but Sam has always persevered. And his tremendous intellect is matched by his heart, determination, loyalty, and resourcefulness. If there are only a handful of characters who have always been admirable and easy to root for, Sam has to be near the top of that list. I tend to believe that Sam will survive into the aftermath of wherever things end. But the fact that his character seems so pure in a world with so much darkness, that has me a little worried for Sam. I'm not sure what will become of Gillian the Kid, but I think Samwell Tarly deserves to live. But
deserves got nothing to do with it.
I've done my part. I've brought ice and fire together. I will return, dear Spider. One last time.
My lady.
I have to die in this strange country. Just like you.
with these two, I think they're both going to die. It's more or less a given that if Melisandre resurfaces, that she's destined to die here. On the other hand, Varys has always excelled at being a survivor who overcame hardships and evolved with the changing times. So it seems reasonable to believe Varys should survive whatever happens unscathed. He has a knack for survival. But I think his time has come, and if I had to make a bet, I'd say Varys is more likely to perish than Melisandre, because prophecies tend to be overrated if not misunderstood. That being said, my money is on both of them dying.
And what will you be, handsome?
Whatever my queen commands.
Does she like it gentle or rough? A finger in the bum.
You'll be my advisor. My protector. Oh, I see.
I have to be honest, this is making me hard.
As far as the Greyjoys go, I believe Euron will almost certainly perish, even if I kinda hope he survives and wins. Euron just fits the mold of a character that will eventually die in horrific fashion. I think Yara is probably doomed as well, and it seems reasonable that Euron himself might be what ultimately ends her. As for Theon, he has long suffered miserably. He has made many terrible decisions. He has betrayed an awful lot of people, and he has very few redeeming moments. Completely broken by Ramsay, I suspect Theon is either going to die in cowardly fashion or actually dig down deep and rise to the occasion. My money is on a cowardly death, although I do have a sneaking suspicion that Theon might survive and become something of a poor man's modern-day Varys.
I'm not leaving you. You're the fastest. Go, now!
Gendry, he can row a mean boat, and he's really fast when he runs. And like I said earlier, I'm a huge Robert Baratheon fan, and I've sort of liked Gendry as a result of that, so I kind of hope he makes it. But despite his rowing prowess, and despite being really fast, I doubt he will be fast enough when the moment comes and it really counts. So Gendry will probably die and die miserably. But I hope I'm wrong on this one.
The children of the forest made these. They were here together, the children and the first men.
Jon isn't really my father's son. He's the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and my aunt Lyanna Stark. I can never be lord of anything. I'm the three-eyed raven.
Bran is obviously a key piece in the puzzle of everything that is about to unfold. However the Night King is ultimately contained or defeated, I have very little doubt that Bran is the prize player in making that happen. How will it happen? I have no idea. Will he warg into a dragon? Will some other connection with the Night King be revealed? Whatever happens, I think Bran's fate ultimately comes down to this. Does he need to die in order to defeat and or contain the Night King? If he does, then Bran is gonna die. If not, I suppose that means he will live.
Protect your queen!
I, for one, have never been overly impressed with the army of Daenerys. The Unsullied are overrated, the dragons aren't all that they're made out to be, and the Dothraki have yet to overcome true adversity. Time and time again, the Unsullied got their asses kicked by the Sons of the Harpy, and it was always preceded by that kick-ass Harpy's theme music. Whenever you heard that music, you just knew the Unsullied were about to get slaughtered like Star Trek red shirts. And the Dothraki may fight like it's a sporting event that they enjoy, but I'm not completely sold on their long-term constitution as a fighting force. The Dothraki always seemed a little fickle to me. And the dragons themselves, they suck in battle. One of them was getting schooled with spears flung from the Sons of the Harpy, then one of them got drilled by a bolt fired from Bran, and the other one got knocked the hell out of the sky when the Night King showed off his impressive javelin throwing skills. These dragons suck. That's right, they suck. She already lost one of them, and anytime she uses one of them in battle, it gets fucked up. This doesn't bode well for Daenerys, and she's not all too bright to begin with. I tend to believe most of her army will get brutally wiped out, and that includes the two remaining dragons. I definitely don't imagine the dragons surviving for the long haul. I think they will fill their purpose, and I believe they will probably dish out a little damage before they cave, but they will ultimately be slain. As far as Daenerys goes, the basic struggle for her has evolved into something where it's a balancing act between acting on her natural impulses and knowing when to adhere to the advice of her advisors. But that brings me back to this awesome scene with Lady Olenna.
I've known a great many clever men. I've outlived them all. You know why? I ignored them.
Enough with the clever plans. I have 3 large dragons. I'm going to fly them to the Red Keep.
You're a dragon. Be a dragon.
I think Lady Olenna is correct. Daenerys is a dragon, and she will be a dragon. Daenerys, when cornered, always seems to want to go recklessly on the offensive. To her credit, She does digest the counsel she receives from her inner circle when she has more time to give decisions proper consideration, but I believe she will be cornered. She will go on the attack, she will kick a lot of ass, and ultimately her and her dragons will soon meet their dreadful doom. When Daenerys goes down, it will be gruesome, it will be horrific, and it will be disturbing. My money is on the Night King himself to deliver the lethal blow that ends Daenerys Targaryen.
We need this dragonglass, my lord. We know that dragonglass can destroy both White Walkers and their army. We need to mine it and turn it into weapons.
How do I convince people who don't know me that an enemy they don't believe in is coming to kill them all?
But more importantly, we need allies. The Night King's army grows larger by the day.
I saw the Night King, Davos. I looked into his eyes.
Jon isn't really my father's son. He's the heir to the Iron Throne.
I've done my part. I've brought ice and fire together.
We need this dragonglass, my lord.
And finally, we have Jon Snow. He knows nothing. Jon Snow obviously serves some greater purpose, or the resurrection would never have come into play. So just like Bran, Snow is destined to do something important here. But can Jon Snow actually achieve his purpose and live to tell the tale? Jon Snow might see things through, maybe. I don't know. I believe that once Jon Snow serves his greater purpose, that he too will become expendable. I believe Jon Snow will succeed. I think he's likely to have at least a half a dozen more heroic deeds before all is said and done. But I do believe a hero's death awaits him, however things play out. So Jon Snow is probably going to die too. So who's going to sit on the Iron Throne in the end? If you're to believe any of the predictions I've made here, there is almost no one left. Long live Queen Cersei. No, she's fucked. I mean, knowing that Queen Cersei will inevitably die, I think it would be kind of awesome if the Night King was victorious in the end. I personally love the idea of the Night King sitting on the Iron Throne, sipping a frosty beverage, and every once in a while he transforms an elite-level infant into the next generation. That truly would be a fitting ending, but I think the Night King is just as screwed as Cersei. Both will perish before the final season concludes, or the Night King at the very least will be contained. So who is left? Tyrion Lannister atop the Iron Throne? That would be incredible, but I can't imagine Tyrion or even Samwell Tarly filling that seat. And as much as I have long hoped for the triumphant return of Syrio Forel, I don't even think he's from Westeros, so he's out. There's no one left. So please allow me to go back and revise my earlier prediction regarding Sansa Stark. The more I think about it, Sansa is going to live. And even though for years I was hoping Sansa would be savagely slaughtered by one of the many sadistic Stark enemies creeping around Westeros, I've now changed my mind. Put me firmly in the column of Team Sansa. Someone has to sit on the Iron Throne in the end, right? And I definitely believe Daenerys and Jon Snow are doomed. If Bran makes it, he won't be of any use politically speaking, and I'm not sure Bran makes it in any case. Arya? Well, she herself admitted that Sansa makes a better lady than her, and I believe Arya is doomed to die. That leaves Sansa. If Cersei can't win in the end, then at least her top student can. After all, Sansa Stark is the making of a modern-day Cersei Lannister. Perhaps Lady Sansa will even be the one who slaughters my beloved Queen Cersei. Long live Queen Sansa? Nah, screw that. I hope the mountain squashes Sansa's skull like a grape. Long live Queen Cersei. Incidentally, if I accidentally overlooked any important characters here, it's safe to assume I expect them to die, and die miserably. Hang in there, Cersei. You got this. You got this. Long live Queen Cersei indeed. Whatever happens, I just hope it's enjoyable and that it continues to be the thoroughly entertaining show that Game of Thrones has always been. HBO, April 14th. It's right around the corner. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy the upcoming 8th season of HBO's Game of Thrones. Have a wonderful night, everyone, and stay tuned.
King Robert Baratheon, murdered by a pig.
You're too fat for your armor.
Fat? Fat, is it? Is that how you speak to your king? I'm trying to get you to run my kingdom while I eat, drink, and haul my way to an early grave. You heard the hand. The king's too fat for his armor. Go find the breastplate stretcher. Now! Put on the badge, and if you ever take it off again, I swear to the mother I'll pin the damned thing on Jaime Lannister.